All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we're diving deep into the world of Nvidia. And we're not just talking about their usual quarterly earnings report, though that's definitely part of it.
We're going even further, way further, in fact. We'll be taking a look at a stock price forecast a whole decade out to 2035.
10 years in the tech world is basically a lifetime. But the methodology is fascinating, and we'll break it down so it makes sense, I promise. But first, can you give me a quick preview of why this particular Q3 earnings report has everyone on the edge of their seats?
Well, for NVIDIA investors, this report is a bit of a nail-biter.
Oh, I love a good cliffhanger. Why is that?
There's just so much riding on it. I mean, they've put out a really bold revenue forecast of $32.5 billion.
$32.5 billion. That's insane. That's almost double what they made last year.
It is, and that's not all. If they hit that target, we're looking at a potential gross profit margin of around 75%.
Seriously, 75%? I mean, is that even sustainable? What's fueling this kind of growth?
You know, it really comes down to two big things, AI and data centers. NVIDIA's GPUs are basically the engines behind this whole AI revolution, and the demand is through the roof.
Yeah, everyone's talking about businesses ditching their old data centers and upgrading to these new GPU-powered ones, right? Is that what they're calling this trillion-dollar upgrade cycle?
Exactly, and the scale of it is pretty mind-blowing. It's like a global shift in computing infrastructure.
Yeah.
And guess who's at the forefront of it all?
Nvidia, obviously. But here's my question. What happens after this huge upgrade wave is over? When everyone's data center is already decked out with the newest, shiniest GPUs, what then? Does the music stop for Nvidia?
That is the AE question, isn't it? And it's a really interesting one. The 10-year forecast actually suggests this crazy growth spurt driven by data centers will start to level off after 2030.
Oh, so it's not all sunshine and rainbows forever, even for a tech giant like Nvidia.
Right, it's not a never-ending party. They're going to have to find some new avenues for growth, some new gold mines, so to speak.
Ooh, new gold mines. I like that. So we should be listening for clues about Nvidia's future plans in this Q3 report, right? New products, new market.
Exactly. It's about understanding where they're heading next.
Okay, before we dive into the 10-year forecast, let's talk about these two names that keep popping up. Blackwell and Reuben. And it sounds like a law firm. What's the deal with those?
Well, you could say that they're both crucial to NVIDIA's future. Imagine Blackwell is like the star quarterback leading the charge right now.
I can picture it. He's already out on the field making those big plays.
Exactly. And investors want to know, can NVIDIA produce enough Blackwell to meet the demand? They're desperate for details. Now, Reuben, think of Reuben as the rookie waiting in the wings, full of potential.
Got it. So Blackwell is the present, Reuben is the future.
Precisely. And investors are trying to get any hint of how good Reuben will be. Will Reuben be even better than Blackwell? And then there's this whole other factor looming over everything.
You mean the whole U.S.-China situation, right? And what's happening with Taiwan?
Yeah, it's like a giant elephant in the room.
Yeah.
You know, most of NVIDIA's production is in Taiwan, which puts them right in the middle of all the tension.
It's a bit of a geopolitical thriller.
Definitely. And investors will want to know, what's NVIDIA's plan B if things escalate? Do they have any backup manufacturing locations ready to go? These are high-stakes questions.
All right, so we've got sky-high growth, new products, a geopolitical drama, and then there's that whole 10-year forecast predicting the stock could hit $1,700 per share. But before we get lost in all of that, let's rewind for a second. How do they even come up with these wild predictions? What's the methodology here?
Okay, it all starts with something called earnings per share, or EPS. It basically measures how much profit a company makes for each share of its stock.
Okay, that makes sense. So analysts are predicting how much Nvidia's EPS will grow each year over the next decade.
You got it. And they take into account all the things we've been talking about, like the data center boom, the new products, the geopolitical risks. And then they combine all of that with something called the price-to-earnings ratio, or PE ratio.
PE ratio. Okay, now you're losing me. Can you break that down for me? Maybe like I'm a 5-year-old.
Now imagine you're running a lemonade stand, right? The price of your lemonade is like the stock price. The money you make from each cup you sell is like the EPS. The PE ratio is how much people are willing to pay for a cup of your lemonade compared to how much you're actually making from selling it.
So a high PE ratio means people are lining up around the block for your lemonade, even if each cup doesn't cost that much to make.
Exactly. And with NVIDIA, their PE ratio right now is pretty high, around 29. That means investors are really optimistic about their future. But here's the thing. This ratio can change a lot depending on, well, a lot of things.
I can imagine. So how do they factor that into the 10-year prediction?
They use different PE scenarios, like what if it stays really high, around 29? What if it drops to, say, 20 or 24?
So each scenario gives them a different possible stock price in 2035.
Precisely.
All right, let's hear it. What's the magic number, or numbers, I guess? What range are we looking at for Nvidia's stock price in 2035?
Well, according to this forecast, we could be looking at anywhere between $1,700 and $1,900 per share.
Whoa. Okay, but earlier you mentioned that data center growth is supposed to slow down after 2030. So how does the stock price keep climbing even with that happening?
Well, remember we talked about that 52.5% projected yearly growth in EPS?
Yeah, that's a huge number.
It is. Even if that growth slows down, if Nvidia can keep growing at a decent rate, the stock price should keep going up. Of course, the big question is that kind of growth realistic?
That's what I want to dig into next. We've set the stage, we know the players, now let's really break down this 10-year forecast. What are the assumptions behind these predictions? What could go wrong? And most importantly, what should our listeners be paying attention to as they navigate the wild world of tech investing?
Let's do it. All right, so we're looking at a potential stock price for Nvidia of $1,700 to $1,900 per share in 2035.
That's just wild. I mean, especially when you think about the fact that it was trading at 42 cents just a decade ago.
Yeah, talk about a missed opportunity.
Seriously. But even if we accept those 2035 predictions, how do they justify such a huge jump even after that data center upgrade cycle cools down? It can't all be about inflation, can it?
No, definitely not just inflation. It really comes down to Nvidia's ability to adapt and find those new gold mines we were talking about.
Okay, remind me about those gold mines.
Remember, we were saying AI isn't limited to just data centers anymore. It's becoming essential in almost every industry you can think of. Healthcare, transportation, even entertainment and manufacturing.
It's like AI is everywhere these days. But is NVIDIA really in a position to, like, capitalize on all of that? What makes them so special?
Well, for one thing, they've got a massive head start. They've been pouring money into AI research and development for years now, and they've built a really strong reputation for providing the best hardware and software for all these AI applications.
So, like, even if they don't strike gold themselves in all these different industries, they're still supplying everyone else with the tools they need to do it.
Precisely. They're the picks and shovels of the AI gold rush.
I love that analogy. But they're not just sitting back and letting everyone else do the digging, are they?
Definitely not. They're constantly looking for new markets, building partnerships, even buying up companies that fit into their big AI vision. They're creating an entire ecosystem designed to, well, dominate the AI landscape.
Okay, so they're shaping the future of AI. That's exciting. But not every company that bets on a hot new trend ends up a winner, right? What could go wrong for NVIDIA?
Of course, there are always risks. Nothing is guaranteed in the world of investing. I mean, the biggest concern right now is probably the whole geopolitical situation, especially with Taiwan.
Yeah, that whole thing is a bit nerve-wracking.
Right. Most of their production is concentrated in Taiwan, which makes them very vulnerable to all the political tension there.
So it's like, what if something happens and they can't get those chips out of Taiwan anymore?
Exactly. Investors are going to be looking for signs that NVIDIA is taking steps to diversify their production, finding some backup locations just in case.
Okay, so geopolitical risks, that's one big thing. What else should we be watching out for?
Well, competition is always a factor in the tech world. There are always new companies popping up trying to, steal the crown.
So what makes you think NVIDIA can stay ahead of the pack? Give me some reasons to be optimistic.
Well, firstly, their brand recognition is already incredibly strong. When people think of AI hardware, they think of NVIDIA.
It's like Kleenex for AI chips. Everyone uses their name, even if it's not actually an NVIDIA product.
Exactly. But they're not just relying on their name. They're constantly pushing the boundaries, always investing in research and development to stay ahead of the game.
They're not just playing defense, they're playing offense, right? Constantly innovating. But how can you tell if a company is actually innovating or just, putting a new coat of paint on the same old stuff?
That's a good question. I would say one thing to look for is their partnerships. Are they working with, top universities and research institutions? Are they attracting the best and brightest minds in the AI field?
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the whole ecosystem they're building.
Exactly. And also keep an eye on patent activity. If they're filing patents for genuine breakthroughs in AI, that's a really good sign.
Got it. Patents, partnerships, attracting top talent. Okay, those are all good signs. But even with all of that, there's still a lot of uncertainty. The tech world moves so fast, nobody has a crystal ball. So What would you say is the most important thing for someone to keep in mind before investing in Nvidia?
I would say the most important thing is to think long term. Don't get too caught up in the daily stock market ups and downs.
It's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market.
Exactly. Focus on the fundamentals of the company,
Yeah.
their potential for long-term growth, their ability to adapt. Those are the things that really matter.
And don't forget about diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely. Spread your investments around. It's all about managing your risk.
Now, this source we've been looking at mentioned that Nvidia's stock has already gone from 42 cents to $118 per share in just the last 10 years.
It's an incredible track record.
It makes you wonder, could this be like a once-in-a-generation stock? Could we see another jump like that in the next 10 years?
It's a question a lot of people are asking. And while nobody can say for sure, NVIDIA definitely has a lot of the qualities that made companies like Apple and Microsoft so successful.
That it's factor, that sense of innovation and disruption that investors love.
Precisely.
But is that really enough? What else should people be thinking about before making a decision?
I think it's really important to remember that past performance doesn't guarantee future success. The tech world changes so quickly. What worked in the past might not work in the future.
So you're saying don't just blindly follow the hype. Do your research.
Absolutely. Understand the company, their products, their risks.
Don't be afraid to ask tough questions and get a second opinion.
Exactly. Talk to other investors, read analyst reports, get a feel for the bigger picture.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here today, but I feel like I have a much better understanding of NVIDIA and the future of AI. Before we wrap up, are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would just say embrace the journey. The world of investing is full of ups and downs. It can be a wild ride.
A roller coaster for sure.
But it's also an incredible opportunity to be a part of something truly transformative, something that's shaping the future.
So do your research, make smart choices, and enjoy the ride.
Exactly. It can definitely feel overwhelming with so much to consider, especially in such a rapidly changing field like AI.
No kidding. It's like every week there's some new breakthrough, some new company making headlines. It's hard to keep up.
Right. But that's also what makes it so exciting. There's always something new to learn, something new to explore.
I think that's what I've enjoyed most about this deep dive. It's given me a much clearer picture of what's driving this whole AI revolution and where NVIDIA fits into all of it.
Exactly. We've gone beyond just the numbers. We've really tried to understand the bigger picture, the long-term trends.
And honestly, I feel like I have a much better grasp on how to evaluate not just NVIDIA, but any tech company, really.
That's fantastic to hear. That's what we were hoping for.
We talked about those incredible returns NVIDIA has delivered in the past, but it's clear that past performance isn't a guarantee of future success.
Right. The landscape is constantly shifting.
But the potential is definitely there, and if NVIDIA can continue to innovate and adapt, they could very well be one of those rare, once-in-a-generation stocks.
Agreed. It's certainly a company to watch closely.
Absolutely. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of NVIDIA.
It's been a pleasure exploring all of this with you.
Likewise. And to all of our listeners out there, we hope you found this deep dive insightful and informative. Remember, knowledge is power, especially in the world of investing.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and who knows, maybe you'll discover the next once-in-a-generation stock before everyone else.
And until next time, keep diving deep.